This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This is your Why Sports Remains Undefeated leader fan radio network,
Believe.
and KFAN.com. 2 minutes, 4 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Daylight Saving Time. Welcome back. It is a Friday Football Beast edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a fairly overcast Friday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Welcome back to the show. My name's Dan Barreiro. I'm the occasional host, former Ink Stain Wretch newspaper of the Twin Cities. Guardsy produces the show. We both do a TV show called Enough Said, that I think is on normal times tonight. Did I read that right or listen correctly earlier today from Lori Fisher?
I think half the shows are on normally, I think.
Oh,
because
there's
there's
which is which?
Aurora Soccer,
That's
and
true.
then there's Saints Baseball.
You're right. So check your local listings.
We're barely on tonight, but we are on.
We are on eventually. I was reminded by the producer of the Enough Said program that our 3:15 in-studio guest appeared on Enough Said.
Yeah.
Lindsay Whalen.
A few years ago.
My memory is bad because I literally have no recollection of that. And I think it was with me.
Yes.
I think you were off.
Yes.
And it was with me. So, well, maybe we'll talk about it.
She's
3:15.
confirming everything right behind my right shoulder.
That it happened.
Yes.
I think it was a long time ago.
It was.
Although now Lori Fisher has in her head, well, she did it once. Maybe she'd like to do it again. I go, let's not push our luck.
Yeah.
Let's not overdo it. She's kind of busy again these days.
The text.
She went from having nothing to do to once again having a meat grinder of a full schedule.
She's on the grind. We were talking about it before the show.
Well, no one forced her to take the job.
Lindsay's appearances on Enough Said halted once Lori kept demanding that they go to brunch.
And
then I think it got a little weird for Lindsay and all of us, really, that Lori just kept demanding a brunch after one show.
The story got better
after I left.
After you left,
yeah,
in that regard. So we will attempt to cover that
for Lori.
Well, maybe for Lori. I don't think it's going to be for Whalen because I think she's probably going to be bored with it. But nevertheless, we're going to try to attempt to clear the air on that because otherwise we're not ever going to hear the end of it on our end. You or me. Right?
Yeah.
It's never going to go away.
I'd forgotten about the brunch debacle until it came up today.
You know how many years ago that was? Like 9.
Yeah, I do.
It was actually 2. But she made it sound like it was like 6 months ago. And she has, Lori Fisher, I mean, within 10 seconds, she had the text thread.
I know. She's got the receipt.
She saved it all. Yeah. It's just bizarre to me.
She's taking it hard.
Anyway, we'll get to all of that. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686. The Friday regular is also part of the festivities today. Lavelle at 5:30. And Ben Gessling at 4:30. He and several other Star Tribune Ink Stain Wretches had a Q&A with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah upon the news breaking, earlier? Was it earlier this week or late last week?
Yeah,
that he signed a contract extension?
Yeah.
So we'll get into a lot of that with him. We'll get into the A-Raj fallout and who knows what else with Ben Gessling about 4:30. I think we have pretty abundant evidence of why sports remains undefeated. And it's because, I mean, we don't have to obsess over it, but it's fair to say that going into the NBA Finals, very few people were willing to say publicly that they thought the Indiana Pacers had much of a chance. They said all the right things. You know, interesting team. They never give up. They keep coming at you. But Okie City, man, come on. Let's get real here. So most of the picks were Oklahoma City in 4, 5, or 6. There may have been a rare exception, but there were not many. And it was almost as if the series from that standpoint was being approached with dread, almost like we got to get through it. Somebody's got to win, and this probably isn't going to be a lot of fun. Maybe the storyline will be Oklahoma City is that good, and that will be, what people concentrate on. Then game one is played. And suddenly, everybody who cares about pro basketball is energized. There's a feeling, and by the way, we don't know yet that it's true because it's one game, but there's a feeling that the NBA Finals have been saved. There is now a reason to double down on your commitment to the bit as soon as Sunday in Game 2, to pay attention. Like, whoa, is that real? Did that happen? And, of course, the Pacers made another one of their customary ridiculous comebacks to get it done. A 15-point fourth-quarter deficit, tying for the largest NBA Finals comeback, I think, since 1971. And everybody's seen the stats. Pacers have fallen behind by 15 points or more 8 times during this postseason run. Their record in those 8 games is supposed to be 0-8. It's 5-3. So it is a reminder that as much as we think we know what's coming, and as much as we do approach some events with some dread, like we're just going to get through it, and this is not going to be, it's going to be, okay, maybe the Pacers win one game, but it's going to be, at worst, Oklahoma City in 5. That's what almost everybody we talked to honestly believed. And what ensued last night is why sports remains undefeated. Just the possibility, the prospect that one night everything can either change or it can feel like it has changed, right? Because as I said, Oklahoma City can come back and win the next 4, and then it'll turn out to be much ado about nothing. But we don't know that yet. What seems to have been opened was a door that said, this might be different than we thought. This Pacers club might be a very unique kind of NBA champion, right? No superstar. I don't think most people will ask our 315 guest to get into the definition of what a superstar is, but I don't think most people view Tyrese Halliburton as a superstar. A star, yes.
Yeah, not yet, but
capable,
maybe pending.
Yes, but not to this point. And then a bunch of really interesting, well, they're not, a couple of them are better than role players, but they're certainly not viewed as superstars. And maybe a reminder that in the new NBA, there's different ways to win. That's what I loved about last night. It was kind of watching, kind of paying attention, and then you see, oh, wait a minute, they're starting to make it interesting again in a way that the Minnesota Timberwolves could not. More on that later. And then you say, hold on a minute here. Single digits and getting closer, and the lead is shrinking, and the Pacers are hitting bank 3-pointers. Maybe it's their day. And then ultimately, they get the lead once, right? With 0.3 of a second to go.
They led one time.
On a Halliburton shot that is classic Halliburton, which is what? Finding space when everybody knows he's the guy and still getting off a remarkably good shot. Frankly, it's the kind of good shot with the game on the line that the Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards seldom get. It's one of the challenges, I think, for this team to go to your favorite expression, the next level. And that, to me, is what has the entire basketball community is energized. Is
Big
it not?
time. Yes. Oh, yeah.
So it shows you again why sports, people pay attention to them as a way to get away, as entertainment, whatever sociological term you want to use, escape. Last night was why people keep, despite all their frustrations about various things and commercials and this problem and that controversy, that sports remains undefeated, that we can't get enough of it because every once in a while something like that happens and we take a whole new look. Now I heard people today, speaking of extremes, go, well, I don't know if Oklahoma City can win a game in this series. It's unbelievable. But that's okay in this case because it means the door has been opened in a way that made, whether you were a Pacers fan last night or not, made that finish pleasurable. How many people were up off their barcas going, what?
Anybody that was
made
awake.
That shot.
Anybody that was
That's
awake.
Unbelievable. They're going to win the bleeping game. And they did.
Even the inevitable, which is Oklahoma City usually, is not necessarily inevitable with sports. And the one time when they're not inevitable is if you can somehow get to the fourth quarter and you've got a puncher's chance. Then we talked about it during the Wolves series. Once they get up 15, all their shooting percentages go up by like 12%. Every single player. And that's when teams get careless and they start throwing the ball away. Pacers hung on to the ball, made a couple shots. All of a sudden, Chet Holmgren's not playing because he can't finish.
No.
All of a sudden, Dub can't make a shot. All of a sudden, Shea isn't the guy, even though he had a couple of great finishes even in that fourth. It is crazy. What seems inevitable sometimes isn't. That's if you can get them into the fourth quarter.
I find it very impressive. And then the big Halliburton stat. By the way, we have to find, there's a sounder. It's a Spanish language play-by-play guy of an earlier Halliburton game winner or late shot. That is, it's like that. It's like that, except he says, Halliburton! And he just says it so over the top. It's brilliant. We have to try to find that somewhere if we can. I absolutely love it. And the big Halliburton stat is, I think he's already now reached the top 3 in the last 50 years of game-winning shots. Like he's and in his case, he's done it in how many games? It's like a handful of games. He's got 5. LeBron I think LeBron has 7, but that goes back over like 300 games. And in Halliburton's case, it's been like 8 that he's already with the all-time greats when it comes to hitting last-second shots.
I think I found the play-by-play.
Did you find
Nobody wants to talk, man. Everybody's on their phones, man. We need to figure out the pick and roll.
Is that it?
That's close.
Oh.
That was Kevin Garnett doing a Ricky Rubio impression.
Nobody wants to talk, man. Everybody's on their phones, man. We need to figure out the pick and roll.
Oh, that's too good. Rubio is back in the news.
He is.
You're going to have to help me understand why exactly. Is he just doing a look back of his whole career like I'm done with basketball?
I think so.
And I want to thank a lot of people, including Minnesota. You were aroused by Minnesota being singled out by your guy, my guy, Ricky Rubio.
It was home for him, in his own words.
Yeah. But you know what? We will never know what might have happened if he had not collided knees.
You're right.
With Kobe Bryant, right?
You're right. Yes.
That may have changed everything.
20 and 20, Friday or Saturday night, Target
We
Center.
might have had 2 or 3 NBA Finals appearances by now. Or is that going a little too far?
Nothing was impossible.
Not with Ricky Rubio. Not when he's full strength. 100% right. Let's get a pause in. 64686 if you have questions for assistant coach Lindsay Whalen. She is back in the meat grinder, ladies and gentlemen. Assistant coach for your undefeated Minnesota Lynx.
You want to know why it's loud still? Why? It's the barn. And it echoes. It's made of aluminum ceiling. I got it.
The roar for 44 is intact.
So far.
You cannot say with a straight face that the Lynx do not have a chance to finish the regular season 44-0.
I'm hearing that's the plan. That's what my sources are telling me.
Why wouldn't it be? Whalen, right around the
Fan.
I think we've chatted on air with our in-studio guest since. Have we talked on air since you returned to the Lynx?
No.
I don't think we have.
Nope.
Was that purposeful? Were you
I've been just
trying
waiting.
not be? We didn't ask.
I've just been waiting.
Guardsy, why didn't we ask for Lindsay Whalen?
Wanted to let her get settled in the new
That's
job.
true. We didn't want to rush it.
Yeah.
Demanding role.
That's
true.
it.
That's true.
I waited until there was a little break in the schedule of games, and then we pounced.
Is how hard is Cheryl going on the roar for 44, going undefeated in the regular season? Is that coming up at all? Or?
No, it hasn't come up. You know,
I tried that on her. What year was it? Same thing. They started like 9-0.
Something.
And I
happened like 4 times.
I remember listening to that.
She was.
We have a couple shirts
delighted.
we'd like you to bring back to the team to wear in Dallas on Sunday that say "Roar for 44."
Roar for 44.
Oh my God.
Yeah, a couple of shooting shirts
Well,
for the
it's either
team.
you or the Liberty. Liberty's undefeated as well.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
on a collision course.
Yeah. We had the same instance in one of the years when us in LA
That's right.
were both really off to some hot starts. So, today we were more focused on what we needed to do to continue to get ready for this this Dallas trip and
Just like the
clean
next
up some
game,
stuff.
probably.
That's what it is. And then clean up some stuff from Phoenix from the other night. But it was a good day. It was a good practice.
Well, it's good to have you back. It's good to have you in as well. And the obvious question is why? Why did you decide to jump back in? Boredom? Right time? Cheryl, very persuasive? What would you say?
Timing. I think that it was, when Cheryl first reached out, I was, I was trying to think. I think I was on my way to play tennis, actually. And it was maybe Thursday or Friday or something like that. And I had obviously just come off of the summer of like watching the team and going to a lot of the finals games, and just really became a big fan of the team, just with how they played and the way that they progressed through the season and got all the way to Game 5. So I was pretty much, the second she texted, we talked. That's pretty much all. I was like, yeah.
So she didn't have to convince you at that point. You were in. Yeah,
no, I was in. That's pretty much, all I was able to think about until it was like fully done and announced and everything. And that was in December. And now we've been able to go through the most, for the most part, like a full off season and with like free agency and scouting and the draft and now training camp. And now we're into games and things. So it's been really fun, especially this last week, just getting into some games. Sometimes where it's been, my scout, just kind of where you're in now with the team and where you kind of, fit in with this group and what you can bring and how you can, add to, this team that has already had the success. So it's been really fun, like the road trip, being with the team on the road. And obviously we've had success as far as, the wins and things like that. But I think it's just been fun to see the group continue to progress, and they're a fun group to be around, so that's been good.
So what's the Reeve approach on assistants? Does she just does she like generalists? Does she like coaches, okay, offense, defense, scouting report, whatever? What's it been like for you thus far?
Yeah, well, I think we all have, different players that we, as far as like your position or whatever. And obviously me playing guard and now, working pretty closely with Natisha and Courtney. So yeah, I think that we all have, Brunson obviously being one of the best power forwards of all time with the posts and then, Eric, everybody's got their kind of groups that they work pretty closely with, but we're all in it together, and we're all, if we see something, we're kind of able to have that where we're able to, say something. And then when it's your scout, it's, you've watched film, you've seen that team's tendencies, this is what they're running, this is what they're trying to do. And then, so those days you're involved in everything, and, we're all bringing energy and things like that. But when it's your scout, it's, you're really, on top of, kind of what, helping, coach with what needs to get done. So
if it's the team you've scouted, then you do give a presentation. Is it like verbal stuff? Is it written? Is it reports? Is it a combination of both? What does she demand?
All of it. Yeah, a little bit of all of it. So it's a little bit where you're, obviously more as far as the staff, and then what actually you give to the players is some different things. Obviously, just not probably as much, just because you want to keep them here, the main things, and then that they can focus on and take to the court. So, but it's fun. I always heard as a head coach, you're given the scouts from your assistants. So when I was at the U, it was other people were doing the scouts, and then I was getting them, and then it's like you're managing your team and whatnot. So this has been the scouts I've had. It's been really fun. Like you always hear about like the legwork and the amount of time, and it is, but it's also trying to figure out, okay, how, what makes this team go? What do we need to do? What's going to be good for our team? What are things that coach needs to know that are the most relevant? It's been kind of a fun like puzzle that you're trying to figure out when you go in and get ready to play a team. So one of the fascinating questions when it comes to the relationship between a head coach and assistant coaches is how much feedback and, chatter a head coach might want, especially during a game, because some are very different. In fact, the joke is, well, if you see a head coach that's always, way away from the bench, generally that's a head coach who doesn't really want much from the assistants. I don't even know if that's true, but I assume it just depends on each coach individually. But how have you found that so far? Obviously Cheryl's done this job for more than a minute,
But on the other hand, I would think she wants smart people like you around her so that she would want to hear stuff. But you never know, because I always feel like there's an ego issue of how far can you go to say, hey, don't forget about this? Or so how comfortable are you? What kind of rules does Cheryl have in place in that regard?
I think it's something that you're constantly, there's no real set thing. You're kind of figuring out. It's fluid throughout a game, right? And so I think one of the things that I've been able to, having been a head coach, of kind of what what information you kind of, need before you go in. And so for me, kind of like, when's a good time? Timing is everything.
Sure.
Time and place. Like timing is so much of like, okay, let's, what about this or whatnot? And then feeling out what are the other assistants, and if the scout coach, like what their, how much information, is needed in that instance. And maybe there's something I had to go quickly tell T or Courtney or maybe Fee, right? And then so you're kind of maybe that timeout, you're kind of focused on that.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So it's fun though, because it's never going to be like the same thing every single time.
You're feeling it out.
Yeah, and there's timeouts where we're taking one because they're on a run, and maybe she's got to get right in there, and we got to get back going. Maybe the other team took a timeout, and here's what to expect, stuff like that. So it's definitely been good, but it's so quick. I think that's the thing about the first few games. I realize is just how fast like the game is going. For some reason, I don't know. For some reason, I don't remember that. Let's just everything is quick as far as like the timeouts aren't that long,
right?
And then halftime's not that long when you get in it. So you kind of just got to really be on it from the jump.
Did you find a lot of times former players who get away and come back as an assistant or head coach, they talk about part of what they missed, as odd as this sounds, was the grind, the sort of the repetition of the rhythms of practice, and even being around a group again, even with travel, as annoying as I assume that can be at times, that's something that they do miss in their lives, the routine of it. So do you agree with that? Do you fall into that classification?
Yeah, and I don't think I knew really how much I missed it until, like I said, like I've kind of gotten in this rhythm and routine. Is because it wasn't something like when I was I say like my sabbatical, my little time that I had off or whatever.
Right.
It wasn't something that I was really missing, because I didn't wasn't something that was really on my mind. But now being in it, I kind of realize how much I did miss that. And like you said, the reason why I love it is because I love practice. I love being there, like in the gym, and having that day-to-day interaction and routine. Like I was super excited for practice today. I don't know if all the the players, and like I remember back when I was a player too and things. But you miss that routine and just the like how it flows. So now tomorrow is practice travel. Sunday game day. Game day in itself is its own routine. Night after game is its own routine, its own thing. Sure. Day after game, depending on when the next game is kind of its own thing. So, yeah, I think we go last week, we go Friday, Sunday, Tuesday. We play 3 games in 5 days. 2 of them are on the West Coast, and we come home for 1. So by Wednesday, I was telling somebody earlier, by Wednesday, I mean, I felt like I played. And I obviously didn't play a minute, but it's just you're just so in it, and you're watching film and you're preparing for the next thing. And it's nice to take like Wednesday to just catch your breath or whatever, and then get back to it yesterday, today. And so there is a rhythm to it. And as you see the team progress and grow, like there was a few moments on Tuesday that I was like, we had some great possessions. Too many turnovers, obviously, that game, but like some defense and like the way we moved the ball, that I was like, I had a lot of adrenaline because I was excited for them, because I was like, that was some
seeing the progress.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
And to come off of West Coast, 3rd game, 5 days, to be able to perform like they did, I was impressed and excited for what's to come. You
obviously go way back with Cheryl. And I'm very curious to know, and maybe you haven't been around her long enough in this iteration to answer the question, but and you and I think have talked about this before. certainly on the men's side when it comes to the NBA, the working theory these days is that the old school approach, it's becoming more and more difficult for those coaches to continue to survive. That there's a sense that you have to do things differently. It's not a matter of not being demanding, but maybe being a little more clever about how you reach players, and that you can't pound away the same way. Now, I'm wondering how that applies on the women's side, because from afar, Cheryl seems the same to me. And that to me, I view her as kind of an old school coach. You played for her, so you know you can speak with authority to what it was like then, and maybe compare to what you see now. Does she look the same to you? Do you think she's made some concessions to the notion that these young players they can't be reached quite the same way if you tried to use the old methods? What do you think?
I think that she builds such strong relationships with everybody on the team that, I don't know if, from 2010, she's been here 15 years, obviously the league changes, people change, we all, things are constantly evolving. But I think the thing that remains the constant and remains the same is just the relationship and the communication that she has with everybody on our staff. And then, with the players, and this is what we're trying to do. This is what I see, and knowing when to go to when you need to really, all right, we need a little motivation,
right? Yes.
and when and the great coaches are great at reading that, like with what your group needs and what your team needs. And so, I think that, ultimately players, like, they're competitive. They want to win. And
do they still want to be coached?
They do. Especially the great ones. But yes, they do. I think everybody, who walks in the gym like today or tomorrow for practice, they want to be coached and they want to get better. It's just, things at times, like, I think our thoughts on, the athletes coming up are a little different, but I don't think that has changed so much. And I think especially if you have those relationships, you can, and if you're if this is a standard, and everybody's gonna, play to this and this is our goal, then, everybody falls in line, and that's what we're trying to get out of each day.
Historically, in some staffs, there's been a lot of good cop, bad cop routines where if the head coach is the heavy in a certain situation, one of the assistants is the one who goes back to that player and tries to soften the blow a little bit to make sure that you're not losing the player. How do those mechanisms work so far within your staff, would you say? Well,
I think that as far as the thing that I think is a benefit for our staff is that playing for Cheryl for 9 years at the point guard position, where you're an extension of her. Yep. And so now I feel like I'm still in that role just through, like, our point guards, Courtney and T, or, whoever, is going to be bringing it up. Mm-hmm. So I think that having that, and these are the expectations, this is what has worked, this is what we've done in the past, this is, and then maybe a new perspective from them on some things and kind of working through, like, what they're seeing as well. That's been also a really fun aspect because, playing, I was fortunate to play for great coaches my whole career, but being able to play for Cheryl for 9 years, understanding the amount of success and different things that worked. This read worked at this time of the game. This is what worked, and different things like that. That's been fun to get to know how Courtney and T specifically work, and kind of how, like, what she's seeing, what she's expecting, and having been in their shoes. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So when was it just in the last few weeks, or was it training camp? I can't remember which. Where wasn't there at least one day where she just ended practice early, basically said, "You guys aren't even here. Go. Don't even hang around." Mm-hmm. What do you remember about that? Was that training camp, or was that during this?
Yeah, I think it was. Okay. It was in training camp. Okay. And I just remember that we just the energy for whatever reason that day. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't up to the standard, and it was for all of us, we all as assistants and everybody could kind of look at that day and see what we could have done better to make it not happen again. You kind of learn that day was not what we wanted, not what we needed, and we've all done our best to make sure that, like, every day we go in there, it's really productive.
It appears, Justin and Garzi and I have talked about this a couple of times, that from the beginning, the first interviews, that both Cheryl and the players pretty much led with the belief that they got a championship stolen from them last year in the all-encompassing, last game, the winner-take-all last game, and that it burns. So how much have you picked up on that, and how much fuel do you think it is adding to what this team is doing? Is it like at the center of everything?
Not that I'm really necessarily like picking up on. I think that it's, certainly having a team that made it to the finals, like, you want to get back there because of just, being that close and whatnot. But no, I think that we talked about it a little early, and that's that's always kind of what we've done, from 2011 through 2018. It's like we talk about it maybe on the first day, kind of what our goals are, and some, coming off of even 2016 to 2017 when we kind of felt the same way, when LA got us in 16. So it's pretty similar, 16 to 24. And now, now we move on to, 2025 and how we kind of handled moving on from 2016 to 2017. We said we don't get the joy of 2017 if we didn't have to go through 2016, however painful it was. I don't think it's something that's like a daily, because that's, the finals are so far down the road that if you're not focused on, practice tomorrow, taking care of your body, getting to Dallas, focusing on Dallas, then you're not going to get there, because you're going to have missed out on all the things that you need to do on the day-to-day to put yourself just in a position, and so I think it's something that, each player is probably a little different in how they, how often they kind of use that as a little extra motivation and whatnot. But as a group, they're pretty, what's been impressive is just like how focused day to day this group is.
Lindsay Whalen is our in-studio guest. Don't forget Ben Gessling at 4:30, and Lavelle will join at 5:30 as well. Is the basketball better in the WNBA? Is there, in your mind, an appreciable difference between the basketball that you see now and the basketball that you saw when you played, or not so much? What do you think?
There's just so much more space because everybody can shoot it. For the most part, everybody can shoot it. So there's just space. It's so much 5 out. When we were talking and through a few sets that we used to run this morning in our coaches meeting, just on different things that we would run for Sill and whatnot, and it's just so different. I mean, and I played in the right area. Maybe I would have gotten my 3-point shot better to be able to, figure it out and compete at this level. But man, they just can shoot it, and everybody can space it. And so it's just, I mean, sometimes when you're watching the players just fly up and down, sometimes I'm like, God, I can't believe I used to be out there running around and doing all these things and whatnot. But it's, like you said, every era things change, and right now we're kind of, in the, not necessarily like space and chase like the late 2000 teen Warriors, but there is just like everybody's mobile. Look at our bigs and look at our 4s and 5s. Everybody can shoot it. Everybody's mobile. Everybody's handling the ball, and so it makes it fun because there's so much more you can do. Then it makes it challenging defensively because players now, I mean, you have to be able to guard multiple actions per possession and at a really high level. Otherwise, you're going to get beat somewhere. And so I think that just the athlete that you have to be now is you have to be pretty high level.
What? Give me your impressions now that you're coaching of Nafisa, and is there anybody she reminds you of from either previous Lynx teams or just previous WNBA players?
I think as far as a player, I need to think about that for a second, but, I think the first is in Dallas, and, we're playing, and it's, first half comes and goes, and I think it was like a 1 or 2 point game at half. And then about midway through the third, we kind of go on a run, and Fee's a part of this run. And Courtney's a little bit, coming off her ball screen mid-range. And, I'm like, all right, we're going to have a good little stretch here. I'm like, yeah, Fee's been pretty good. I look up, she's got 28 in the third. And we have like 4 minutes to go in the third. And all of a sudden we're up 12. And I'm just like, what just happened? I'm like, I'm thinking back, and you go, I think she finished with like 34 or 32, something like that. And then it's that was the first time that I was like, that's when like, wow, like she's great. I just, can't say enough about her. She's what you want. She's what you want in your superstar. And somebody who's, right? And somebody who's a pillar right now of our game. And I mean, we've had, that position has been such a talented position throughout the years. If you go, we've had like Lauren Jackson, one of the first 4 or 5 players that could really shoot it from the outside and get downhill, and has a little, post up, mid-range game. Thinking back some more, I'm trying to think. Guardsy, help me out. Some other players.
I'm trying to translate quotes for Twitter that you're saying and get more people to listen. You know what I mean? I'm working over here.
Okay.
I'm in
It's got a lot of jobs.
Including
the other 7.
Yeah, it's true. Why am I blanking on the great power forwards all the time right now? But
while you're thinking about it, I think you kind of touched on a key thing that she ended up being the MVP this year, so it's not like you can't say she's underrated at this point. But I would argue, because of the economy of a lot of her moves that aren't necessarily, like breathtaking, but extremely effective, that sometimes it is easy to not even realize she's got 28. That's sort of I think that's sort of her nature, is that there's not a lot of drama with her game. There's not a lot necessarily, oh my God, but she's effective, and the footwork is obviously first rate.
Yeah, and just her footwork, her efficiency now, like her shooting numbers. And I think last year, actually, I think I came on, and maybe I kind of mentioned like Tim Duncan.
Yes.
Where it's just like,
exactly,
where it's just, what this is going to happen, and he's going to get what he's going to get out of this possession, what he's going to get no matter what you do. And so I think having that reliability, and I think just having like her reliability, and like when she's on the floor, there's so much gravity towards her that now BC's getting a 3, K-Mac's getting a 3. Courtney now has maybe a longer closeout, so she can either shoot the 3 or she's getting downhill a little bit to her mid-range, because Fee takes so much gravity. And then everybody can shoot it from 3. So, if you got her in her spot, and now it's like, if you do leave, she's a good enough passer that she's able to find the next player, find the open player. So, just glad she's on our team. I don't know. It's like, I think at one point, one of the timeouts or one of the meetings we've had, I said to Cheryl, I was like, well, we got Fee. So, it's like what Gino used to say about Diana.
Sure,
we have Diana and they don't. And so it's just kind of one of the things that's really been a separator for us, is that, Fee's been great, and we just continue to get better.
Let's get a quick pause in, a little bit more time with Lindsay Whalen. If you have questions, hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line 646-87. So you guys are preparing as if Paige Beckers is going to play. She's been in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
What day do you play Dallas? Sunday?
Sunday. They play tonight. Dallas plays tonight. I think at like 8:30. So there's 2 games tonight in the WNBA.
So, everybody's, it's natural, because Beckers is a name that we know here, but also obviously nationally because of how well she played in college and her college career. Everybody's trying to figure out who she can be. So what do you see with her? And obviously there's always going to be the inevitable comparison to Clark, just because of the notoriety as well. To me, they feel like 2 different players, but what's your view on what Paige is and what you think ultimately she can be?
Well, I think that, however tall she is, 6 foot, I mean, when you have a point guard that's of that stature and that length, there's just so many different spots on the floor that she's able to get to. Her vision is great. I think that she's, somebody who is just like everybody says, just a great teammate. So, she's going to develop into being a leader and a great leader for her teams. And so I think and she's always been extremely efficient. Her outside shot is something I think that she's worked on to continue to get better. And I think one of the games in the NCAA tournament, I was like, she's putting on, if you clipped her 15 possessions of her in pick and roll, that's just, if you're trying to teach somebody, this is what you should do in pick and roll, you should just take those clips. I think it was against South Dakota. It was just a clinic. They went under, she did this. They went over, she did this. They hedged a little bit, she did this. It was just whatever it was, she found the weakness in the defense. And so I think that, obviously it's unfortunate, you get a little dinged up to start, she with the concussion and everything. And, obviously I think she's, being reevaluated. I'm sure they're constantly, as it goes when you're in, the concussion protocol reevaluation and things like that. But, I don't know. I feel like for her, she's somebody who obviously loves the game. And so when you start with that and you have that passion and that's, what you love the game, you're willing to, do whatever it takes to be successful. So I think she's going to have a great career.
Can she become a big-time WNBA scorer, or do you view her more as distributor who's going to score some? What do you think the possibilities are just in terms of scoring?
I think the more reps and the more times she sees defenses, and I think the more times that she goes through segments of seasons, and then when she gets later on into her career, I think that it's I think she can. Yeah. I don't know what it would be, 20, 16, 18, but she's going to get those assists, and she's also going to rebound, and with her length, steals, deflections, things like that, being disrupted on defense as well is something I think that she can do. So, I think scoring is something that, I don't know, what's Fee averaging right now? 20. I don't know about those numbers or whatever last year with, Stewie and Kaylin or Asia Wilson. If those numbers just from a guard, it's just different. It's just, it's just kind of what it is. But
it's a team obviously in transition. Obviously, that's part of it. The team's got to get better. She's got to get better people around her, probably. Right? There's a reason they had the opportunity to pick her. Right,
yeah, and I think that they did some in free agency. They got some really nice people to come over, and then obviously getting Paige and having an all-star in Enrique. It's a team that's it's hard when you're preparing for the next team. You got to throw out the records, look at, see tonight, see what they're working on. And we know, hey, that we played them in the third game of the season, fourth game of the season.
Very
early. It was down to the wire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a possession game. So, so if we're going in there thinking anything, if we're, preparing, you got to prepare for them to play great. They're at home and so, we got to go in there with that mindset.
So, real quick, the sort of the state of the popularity of the league. I think we've talked about this before. Obviously, Clark is out right now. We see the numbers with her. We see games moved, obviously, to bigger arenas as well. You also see each year more recognizable names that have kind of been part of the basketball culture to a point where it's building towards something. Where are we? What do you see now that you're back in it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at, where were we? Golden State. I mean, it's 18,000 people at that
crazy,
game. I mean,
yeah.
It's just, I feel like we're continuing on this great trajectory, and a lot of people have put in a lot of time and a lot of work. And so, but being at that game, and obviously our opening night against Dallas, our crowd was great, and just being around all that and seeing just how much just the people and not only just the people and the fans, but just as we travel, everything's gotten bigger since since me and Becky and our group played. So it's we just got to continue to grow, and I think that we obviously have, and there's some really, I think, fun times ahead, and Lynx will be a big part of that.
Quick one, Garzi and I were talking early about the game one of the NBA Finals and sort of the Halliburton factor. The stat that blows my mind, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe on average the ball is in any one time he gets the ball, it's in his hands like 3 seconds, which is like one of the lowest numbers for a point guard in basketball. And the moral of the story seems to be that's the way the Pacers play. And he's just about, I don't have to bounce it up and down 12 times. My job is to keep this offense percolating, and it's in his hands and out of his hands. Now, sometimes he breaks somebody down, but as a point guard, what do you see when you see that? Is it because it feels like for a lot of people they're doing something different than we've seen in the NBA before. What do you see? What are your impressions?
I always feel like the best possessions are when your point guard gets it, brings it with pace, gets rid of it, and then at some point gets it back, and then that's time. Or something really good has happened with, that side of the floor. We had a great cut, maybe a post up, maybe, pick and roll. That's because, and then when you get it back, the defense has had to move and everybody's had to shift. So I think that's where, get rid of it, get it back. Now somebody's late in a closeout, somebody's late in ball screen defense, and now you can really go attack. So those are, to me, always the best possessions. Now, of course, there's times where ball screen, here we go, and we're just going to make this read off the start of the possession. But throughout a whole game, that's not surprising with the success that the Pacers have had right now with how they're playing.
It's a fun team. Last question for you. Do you view getting back in this the way you have, is there a master plan that includes, all right, I'm going to become an assistant to be reminded of things that might well help me if I want to become a head coach again? Are you thinking that far ahead? Are you just taking it more year by year? I don't need to think that globally, or is there a master Lindsay Whalen plan that ends with you returning to becoming a head coach?
No, there's no big plan. It's just fun to be back in this. And I think after playing and then coaching at the U, it's just fun to be back in around a team. And so I'm just enjoying that. And I don't know. You never know. On any of this stuff, but it's like, I haven't even let myself think beyond anything of like this season, this year, just trying to, bring, whatever I can bring to this team that's already had a lot of success. And it's just, it's a lot of fun to be back. So thinking about anything else, haven't.
It's the game at a time mentality that you were raised
that's what
in, right?
It is,
in a sense, right? It's the same thing.
Because, absolutely.
And then whatever comes down the road.
That's what it is.
Selby Fairview guy writes this. Lindsay, you definitely don't remember this, but I do. As a 7th grade boy, I met you when you were working as an usher at the Metrodome.
That's right.
You signed a paper plate for me. I was starstruck. For me, you are what Caitlin Clark is for so many now. Watching you and Shannon Schoenrock, those Gopher teams opened my eyes to women's hoops. So Selby Fairview guy says, thank you.
In those days at the Twins, the Metrodome, I think of those days fondly. Actually, my former boss, I see him at the games.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's something at, Target. So I'm sure he's like, way, high up and whatnot. But I was like telling the players, I was like, you guys want to see my first boss? He's right there. I used to work for the Twins at the Metrodome. Yeah, that was, had to make a little money.
Sure, absolutely.
There's no NIL back in those days, so I had to make some money. The only issue is that every paycheck I got, I just spent at concessions at the game.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, whenever my break was.
You were paid in Dome Dogs?
7th inning.
And malt cups?
Yeah, that was the issue, was I would just, it's like I'd go home and I'd spent $15, which now would probably be $30.
But a lot more.
For like a hot dog and a pop or something like that. And
that's okay.
Yeah, but it was for good times.
Nothing.
So
Those
were fun times
and good memories,
Yeah.
obviously. And you got Selby. I assume he still got the paper plate. I bet she still got the paper plate.
I would hope so.
Certainly hope.
I would think it'd be framed at this point. So
good to see you, man. Thank you for coming in.
Great to see you. Thanks, guys.
We appreciate you. Safe travels on the road, and we'll probably be in touch as the Lynx. Yeah, you as well.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks again.
Enjoy.
Lindsay Whalen helping us out. Don't forget Ben Gessling in about 30 minutes, and Lavelle at 5:30.